Welcome everybody, class is in session. This is part of a new series I'm calling Delinquent Discourse, where I yap about different aspects of game design that seem to stick out to me. This can be anything from an artistic choice to even the more technical side, and I'll be doing it through my own personal avatar, Thalassia, Mrs. T for short. So what's the deal with avatars anyway? And I don't just mean the bald floaty kind or the ones that let you turn blue. I'm talking about video game avatars. Characters that players either create or control throughout whichever game they're playing, and how they frame the game's ludonarrative structure. And with that, let's start today's discourse. We'll start by referencing a really important scene that happens at the beginning of Baldur's Gate 3, immediately after the opening movie. We're looking at an alien ship from a first-person POV and see a nasty wriggling creature. It's the Mind Flayer tadpole, and it's inserted into their eye socket. Immediately after that, the same thing happens to us, and the game asks us this question: who are you? From here, you get directed to different character choices. You can either make your own or go with the pre-made origin characters, but immediately there's a lot of contradiction here. The game asks, who are you? But it's not really asking us, hey, what do you do for a living? Do you like chocolate? What's your favorite movie? It's asking us, how do you want to represent yourself? In a world of aliens, demons, gods, and magic, your everyday high schooler or 9-to-5er isn't exactly an attractive choice. And if you don't believe me, watch any isekai before the protag gets his powers. That shit sucks. When given the option to be literally anything in a fantasy world, nobody would say, I want to be someone who goes to work in an office, aka the exact thing you're probably trying to escape from. In order to bridge that gap, video games have avatars. So how do you pick your avatar? Well, people are drawn to others with similar values. If you value being physically strong, a barbarian is an attractive choice because you get to forego pretty armor, societal rules, and formalities to just be a big guy who hits things really hard. If you fancy variety and exploration of unique ideas, magic is probably your go-to, and you probably want to be some kind of wizard or sorcerer. Like the idea of being a local hero? Then Will Ravengard's got you covered. When the game gives you the choice of origin characters, those are the companions you meet on a standard playthrough. It can be a litmus test of what pieces of your own personality you want to see reflected in them. That said, none of this self-reflection can really compare to what you get when you make your own character, and if you look at the stats, this is pretty evident considering how 93% of the people who played the game made a custom character in the opening weekend. Not surprising to me, given of course the fact that everyone I know who plays this game makes a custom character, including me. You can see her on the screen. Picking a pre-made character inevitably kind of feels like playing someone else, because who they are, where they're from, and their role in the story is somewhat predetermined, whereas the player gets to make their own adventure from scratch. Most players want to see a reflection of themselves, and the best way to do that is by making your own avatar. Although it's not quite that simple because, as I mentioned before, most of us would rather leave behind those aspects we either don't like or don't think would fit in the fantasy world. But we also don't immediately abandon everything that's familiar to us. Let's look at an example. Take the playable races. The top 3 most popular at launch for BG3 were half-elves, humans, and elves. That's pointy-ear humans, regular homebrew humans, and pointier-ear humans for the folks who didn't get the pattern. Why is that? Well, we have an overwhelmingly obvious affinity for cognitive bias towards the humanoid, and if we're representing ourselves, we'll use what we find attractive, which would go a ways to explain why the Gith with their bat ears and Voldemort nostrils rank at the bottom of this list. Dragonborn comes in fourth, but I'm chalking that up to the fantastical element of being part dragon, as opposed to the theory that the Scalies came out in full force. Fight it out in the comments. To take another example, let's look at a friend of mine. Whenever he decides he's going into a fantasy game, he will inevitably make a dark-skinned humanoid man with big muscles who shoots magic and sometimes stabs people with swords. In real life, he's a relatively tall black guy with big muscles and enjoys the wonders of magic. Not much of a stabber yet, though. For him, a chunk of his immersion comes from identifying aspects of his physical appearance in the games, followed by letting his personality flow through the avatar's choices. But my wife is a little different. She never attempts to replicate herself in any games she plays. In fact, one of her favorite things to do is to play other characters from other series as closely as possible, like Tim Drake from the Batman comics. She'll do her best to recreate the aesthetic and then make roleplay decisions based on how she thinks that character would act. The same way kids do when you're young and play house. Mommy goes here, daddy goes there, yada yada. It's an opportunity to take the familiar she knows and loves and to have fun with it in an unfamiliar setting. And then there's me. And if you can't tell by my voice, I'm a man, but my avatar of choice is almost always female. Aside from the fact that I enjoyed the hell out of Dr. Girlfriend from the Venture Brothers, it's not really the prospect of playing as a woman that gives me the drive to do it. I don't recreate my appearance, and I don't use outside references when making my avatar. It all pretty much just comes off instinct. I want to see fantastical beauty and strength on display, so my first character choice was a tiefling barbarian. I didn't pick Karlach because that felt like someone else's story. Like picking up a journal someone else had filled out and reading through the pages. Like most people, I wanted to write my own unique story. Not of myself, but as someone completely new. Throwing away my real-life appearance is like letting go of the ties I have to the real world, and helps indulge in the fantastical otherness that comes with existing as someone else. While parts of my personality naturally shine in every character I make, they are their own entity unto themselves, which makes each story not about me, but about them. Their skills, their world, and their adventure. So where does that leave us in conclusion? Well, avatars are key to the game's contextualization by helping to fill the ludonarrative gap that occurs whenever you're playing. You need to suspend your disbelief enough to feel pulled out of the real world, but have something familiar enough to tie yourself to the game world. An avatar bridges the gap between what is real and what is virtual by allowing the player to center the narrative around themselves. And what could be more fun than your own adventure? Thanks for watching. It's a lot faster to write and make these videos than my usual long-form retrospectives, so expect quite a few more of these in the future. If you enjoyed this content, like, sub, and all the fun stuff. Thank you again, and I'll see you all in the next one.